You guys ready? All right. We're going to start it, guys. It's 2 minutes early, but I have a feeling this is going to go long anyways. So, welcome. First of all, Derbycon. Yeah. Derbycon is the best con. Oh my goodness. I love it. Love being here. And thank you so much, Derbycon, for accepting this talk. It means a great deal to me. So, modern evasion techniques, aka how to concatenate strings. This might seem like a joke to you. It's not. It's actually very, very easy to get around certain things. But I need to clarify what I mean by evasion, because evasion, there's a whole spectrum to what evasion is and what it isn't. So from my standpoint, this talk about evasion is not the in-depth caliber of a particular technology. Okay, I'm a penetration tester. I am not a researcher with brains like Harmjoy and Sub-T. All right, I'm a pen tester in need of quick workarounds, and that's what this talk is all about. Okay, and in fact, you're probably going to leave here a little underwhelmed, because you're going to see this stuff. You're going to be like, really? That's all it takes? Yeah, that's really all it takes, because when I'm on a test, I have to get quickly around stuff, and I don't necessarily know what I'm going to run into when I run into it. Okay, so topics, just what we're going to be covering. We're going to be talking about inline controls, and as you can see, I have lots and lots of vendors up there. We'll talk about that in a second. So inline controls, next-gen email controls, Proofpoint, Mimecast, antivirus. Well, we'll just talk about most of them. And then at the end, we'll do a little bit of payload customization with a couple of live demos at the end. So, first of all, I cannot go any further without this particular slide. As pen testers, we stand on the shoulders of giants when it comes to using tools. Like, for example, I can't do a pen test without Kali. I can't do a pen test without Metasploit or Empire or those kinds of things. I mean, I can, but not in the time limit that I have. So, literally standing on the shoulders of giants. People that you see up there, those are people that have contributed in some way or another directly to this talk. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I see Josh Pitts in the crowd. I told you not to come, man. He's up there watching me like, shoot, don't screw this up. So, just a little bit about me. Again, my name is Jason Lang. I've been doing InfoSec 10 years full-time, both in offense and defensive roles. I'm a senior consultant at TrustedSec, and like I said, I'm a pen tester. I'm not a researcher. I'd love to be a researcher someday, but right now it's pen testing. So, specialties, I love Active Directory development, and my hobbies have absolutely nothing to do with technology. So I live out in the middle of nowhere, and when I'm not pen testing, I'm downstairs, woodworking or something. So, real quick, little bit of a disclaimer. You saw a bunch of vendor names, and like I told you, I'm a very direct person. So, if you are married to a particular vendor and you think your vendor's, flashy technology is the shiz, and I tell you that your baby's ugly, sorry, but not sorry. Okay, the other thing is that there's a trend. There's a trend going on in InfoSec right now, and it's something like this. Like some red teamer drops something awesome, and they get accosted on Twitter because there's no mitigations. People are like, well, you can't release a tool without the mitigations. Well, I have some stuff, and I have no mitigations. And I'm here to tell you, I don't have URL rules you can download. I just have things that work. And so for blue teamers, I'm going to tell you this. I love you. I have a passion for blue team. Actually, real quick, who here is red team? Okay. Okay, so blue team? Wow, it's about half and half. Okay. So blue team, what's that? I told you to come. That's absolutely true. So, but what I need to tell you is that, if you are of the sort that says, red team, you have to feed me solutions. You have to tell me exactly what to do. That's not what this talk is, and you're going to be sorely disappointed. As my friend Mauricio said yesterday, he said that and he's very, very, very talented blue teamer, knows more about red teaming than I do, and he said blue teamers have all the advantage, and that is so true. You guys own the environment. You control the rules of the game to a certain to a large degree, actually to a complete degree. And so for me, I'm throwing stuff at you. Like I hear stuff all the time. Like red team only has to be right once. It's not true. That's an absolute outright lie. And the reason why is because it takes a ton of work to put together a phishing campaign. If I have to do that, it takes hours and hours and hours of work, and I send it, I have to be right a bunch of times about a bunch of assumptions that I made. So point being, I'm going to wrap this all up because I'm ranting. All right, point being, you are the blue team. You guys are awesome. I want to see you be more awesome. You own the environment, so blue harder. All right? I thought about putting an I at the top, but I figured personalizing. I figured no one wanted to wear a shirt that said I blue harder. I have 2 T-shirts to give away, so if you ask me an awesome question, you can come get one. All right, inline controls. Let's talk about inline controls. First of all, what are they? An inline control is a network layer control that performs real-time threat prevention, okay? I'm not necessarily, yes, I'm talking about a firewall, but I'm talking about next-gen firewalls, right? I'm talking about firewalls that actually have the ability to detect and stop threats immediately, okay? So, the 2 biggest contenders that I see in the market space that actually do a really, really good job, Palo Alto and Fortinet. Now, if you don't have one of these, and maybe you have something else that is really awesome, and I just don't know about it. This is my experience, okay? In my experience, Palo Alto does a pretty good job with real-time threat prevention, so does Fortinet. Okay? But before we kind of dive into how to do evasion, we have to know what even gets caught. All right, and so we did some testing. And we did testing with a fully licensed, up-to-date Palo Alto, and we did testing with a Cisco 5500 that has firepower. All right, so who comes up with these names, right? So for test cases, what do we do here? Test cases, we tested 4 different actually 3 different toolkits as well as some custom interpreters. So on Meterpreter, this is like stock Meterpreter. All right, this is dumb Meterpreter. Windows 64-bit, that's important. Meterpreter reverse HTTPS. All right, default certificate going across port 443. Puppy, the same thing. OBFS 3 transport. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Empire, we're using latest Empire 2.1. Default cert and the standard stager. And then custom interpreter is just C#, which I'll get into later. And that's basically really just a shellcode harness. That's really all it is. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about configuration. Before we get into evasion and the results of the testing, let's talk about configuration. So for Cisco, if you're familiar with the Cisco 5500, you're going to be familiar with what you see on the right, which is a bunch of rules and filters. And so we wanted to make this Cisco as locked down as possible, right? Okay, maybe even a little overboard of what's going to happen in prod. So we turned on blocking of all the things. We found all of the filters that we could for Metasploit, for Empire, for everything, and we're like, block all this stuff. All right, SSL decryption, yep, we want that too. If you don't have SSL decryption turned on in your environment, you are missing stuff. I'm just going to tell you right now, you're missing an awful lot, okay? So we turn on SSL decryption. Now, that was good, all right? However, buried in the recesses of the Cisco documentation, there is a setting. It's called maximum detection policy. So awesome is this setting that even in Cisco's own documentation, they tell you, don't turn this on. All right? And I'm here to tell you, we turned on max detection policy. Oh my gosh. It's on, all right? Palo Alto, very similar. We went into, for phone protection, we basically enabled all the things. We set them all to reset both, okay? We want to drop the connection on both sides. Wildfire, we left it on, and then SSL decryption, we turned that on as well. Again, key player. I'm going to harp on SSL decryption, blue teamers. It is an outstanding control, and chances are one you probably already own but might not have implemented yet. All right, so let's talk about results. I'll go through the test cases. So, for a Meterpreter, with SSL decryption, yeah, it got caught. It got busted. Okay, we would expect to see that. All right, without SSL decryption, it sailed right through. All right, so now remember, this is not endpoint. Okay, the focus of these test cases is not endpoint. This is all inline right now. We'll get to endpoint a little bit. That's a lot of fun. Okay, but for SSL decryption, I noticed an interesting pattern when we were doing testing. Okay, I would send the shell, and then the shell would die, and then it would try and connect again, and it would die, and try and connect again, and die. Okay, or second behavior is that I would send a shell, and it would come in, and then like I would drop down into Meterpreter and do something like sysinfo, and it would just say operation timed out. So what that is SSL decryption letting the traffic through, the connection gets established, and then it catches up to the fact that, oh, hey, this is really naughty, and it shuts it off. I have? Oh, God. The heck? What the heck? Anyone have a bracelet? Oh, God. Are you serious? Shoot. I'm not chugging. It's actually not that bad. God. Retracted. You scratch that from the record? All right. What the heck was I talking about? Anyway, let's go next slide. So Puppy. If you don't know what Puppy is outstanding. Puppy put together NinjaSec. I don't know the gentleman's real name, but it is a fantastic toolkit. Okay, and what Puppy does is Puppy uses the OBFS3 transport, which is obfuscated TCP. And so the cool thing about that is that it's not just run-of-the-mill HTTPS, although the Palo Alto got a little confused. If you see over here, so Palo Alto was like, yeah, it's SSL. And then, oh wait, it's not, but maybe it is, but no, it's not. And then it's like, here you go, it just sends a traffic, right? Fails open. And then we get a shell. So, interesting note, Windows Defender did detect it. Called it Patapoopy. I don't know who names this stuff, but whatever. So, and then for Empire, how many of you guys know what Empire is? How many of you use Empire? All right, Lottie. Okay, all right. So the Empire is hilarious. All right, so I'm just going to give you a story and screenshots. I'm not actually going to tell you what happened. I'm just going to show you what happened. All right, so here we go. No joke. All right, so let's talk about some invasion technology. So if you need to get around stuff, I highly recommend you go with the impersonated SSL option in Metasploit. What impersonated SSL does is you give it a target, for example, www.google.com, and it goes out, it grabs a certificate, and basically just stamps a fake one. This does not resolve. This is not anywhere near as awesome as the stuff you saw Matt Graber drop in a keynote, but it does give you a fake certificate with a stamped name on it. Okay, and so in your code, when you are creating your payload down with MSF Venom, you specify those two options. Stage S, verify SSL cert. We want to verify it because we need our shells to be secure, and you set the handler SSL option to that particular certificate. Okay, now, and the reason why this works, okay, the reason, what the heck is that? Oh man, it's the blues talking, that's awesome. Alright, so the reason why this works, is because on next-gen firewalls, like Fortinet and on Palo Alto, they have, technology where they profile applications. And so they're kind of getting away from just standard, port-based stuff, and they're moving more to application identification. So what's kind of cool about this is that I was doing some testing with a customer, and we were working with their Fortinet firewall. And so I went through this exact technique. I generated a cert that was google.com, okay, and then I threw it into my payload. And they're like, all right, whenever you're ready, go ahead and send a shell. And I sent a shell, and I got a shell. And they're like, okay, whenever you're ready, send a shell. And I'm like, and I got another one. And the shells were live. And so, and they're like, well, what the heck is going on? And I was like, I don't know. And so they checked their firewall logs, and all they saw was Google. Oh dear. Yeah. So Fortinet takes that certificate, even though it doesn't resolve, and even though I'm not even specifying a domain name. And it's like, oh, you're stamped with Google? It doesn't check the cert, but you're cool, because you're Google. And Palo Alto does the exact same thing. Yeah, kind of naughty. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. There's no way I'm giving you a shirt now. I think I know what you're saying. And honest. Yep. So the first step to that, the very, very first step to that is talks like this, where the understanding and the awareness is raised. So once you know what that threat vector looks like, and the curtain gets pulled back on what the technique actually is, you're like, that technique is stupid. How does that even work? And you're like, well, if I just do this, and then it breaks. And the answer is yes. So for example, to stop something like this, you can configure your firewall to block invalid certificates. No one does it. No one. Why? Because chances are a crap ton of stuff is going to break. Let's be honest. Okay, but the mechanism for protecting the enterprise already exists for something like this. So the best thing that I can do at this particular point is raise awareness. And that's what I'm doing. Good question, though. All right. So, more evasions. Just some tips here. Pay attention to decryption detection patterns. Red teamers, this stuff is kind of for you. So, if you get a shell and then your shell dies, chances are SSL decryption is getting in the way, and you need to kind of up your game a little bit. Okay. So favor Empire and Puppy over MSF. If you are getting detected, change the defaults. It's not hard to do. Change your template, your Metasploit template. I have a link. I think it's in this talk. Black Hills dropped a blog post, I don't know, it's like 2 years ago now, that talks about how to change some of the strings and some of the memory handlers and in the standard Metasploit template that is used for building executables. You change this, and the game does change on the endpoint, and we'll get into that as well. And lastly, hope that you're working with a Cisco firewall. Notice that all of my screenshots were Palo Alto, and there's a reason for that. All that testing that we did with Cisco didn't catch anything. Nothing. With one exception, and that was the 32-bit payload. We did test the 32-bit payload, and everyone's looking at me like, I hate this guy. I'm sorry if you have Cisco. But anyways, so like I said, I wish I had a mitigation for something like that, but I'm afraid I don't. Cisco is just like, oh, you're malicious? It's fine. This is okay. Okay, and oh, yeah, there's a link. Cool, I haven't talked. So let's talk about email controls. From my perspective, email controls is anything that stops my fish from getting to the inbox. Okay? So examples, and like I said, I'm mostly focused on next-gen stuff. All right, I'm not necessarily talking about like just antivirus on your Exchange server. I'm talking more about things like Proofpoint, Mimecast, Google spam filters. So this right here is my absolute most favorite fish in the world. I love this fish. Okay, in fact, I'll even give you a second to read it while I finish my Smirnoff. And I sign it HR, Human Resources. Okay. I get shells all the time with this fish. This is my favorite fish in the whole world. And the reason why this fish is so awesome is because everyone already hates HR. All right. So when do I send this? 2 weeks before Christmas. Ouch. And you know why? You know why this works? Because I am, if you've done any SE training with like Had Nagy or any of those other guys, you know about the concept called urgency. I am implementing a concept called urgency in this email where I want you to forget all security awareness training that you might have had and just get pissed off at HR and continue hating them for all the reasons you already hate them because now they're monkeying with your time off. All right? You read this 2 weeks before Christmas and you're thinking about Christmas dinner. You're thinking about, you know, ham and turkey and family coming over and, you know, pie and stuff like that. And now HR is screwing with your life. And so what do? You double click everything and you already have a response half written in your head. Right? And that's how I get shells. So, anyways, that's my favorite. So, I sent the email, I got a bounce back immediately, okay, and it just says, hey, virus. Sorry, was there a question? Did I miss something? Okay. Send an email, I get a bounce back, says there's a virus. So all I did was I kept the same attachment, put it on my Apache server, and then I sent a link instead of the attachment itself. All right, and I send the link goes through. Now, here's the behavior that I observed. Okay, instead of the normal pattern of me getting a shell right away, what happened was I saw a click in my Apache logs. I'm watching them, right? I'm ready. I'm ready at the keyboard, ready for my shell. And so in the Apache logs, I see click, 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 like just every few seconds, very predictably. And the clicks are just coming in. And I'm like, well, what is this? And so I did a little more research on my client. I pulled up their MX record and I saw that they have Mimecast. I had no idea what Mimecast is. I'm like, what the heck is going on? All right, it's a couple people in there, a couple people in the audience like starting to cry because they're using Mimecast. Anyways, I'm sorry. So I had no idea what Mimecast was, so I went out to their website, and they put a really nice video on their website about what their technology does and how it does dynamic URL inspection, and it's, you know, all this awesome stuff that it does to protect you and your organization. I'm like, sweet. And so, you know, here's a screenshot of the video, and that's my user not getting my fish because their inbox is locked down. So I'm pissed, right? So I'm like, what do I do? So I talked to a buddy of mine, Scott, and I was like, hey, Scott, like, how do I get around this? And he's like, oh, you silly. You need to use Apache ModRewrite. I'm like, well, I've never used ModRewrite. And he said, well, you know, Google it. So I Googled it and I started doing some research on Apache ModRewrite. And if you don't, what Apache ModRewrite is, basically it's just a plugin into Apache that gives you full control over what to do with an incoming request based on certain parameters. Okay, so I configured Apache, drop this into my, just my sites enabled default conf, okay? And if you are really interested in pictures, I will put the slides online, so no worries about that. Alright, and then, remember, let's back up, just take a quick peek at those IP addresses, 96, what is that, 96, 96, 97, just keep that in mind. And then, I created the htaccess file. And notice what I'm doing here, 96, 97, 98, 99, and I'm simply if if requests come in that match those IPs, those class A's, right? I'm pretty sure that's not in my client's WAN space. Okay, so I simply redirect them to google.com. If this is something that interests you, you need to read Blue Screen of Jeff's blog because it is outstanding. That dude friggin' knows some stuff about Apache. He's seen some things. Okay, and so I did that, and I bounced Apache, and I reset my fish, and now I see 302s, and I'm like, oh, you're getting redirected. That's cool. And then 2 minutes later, I get another request comes in, and then I see the download, and then I get a shell. All right, that's how that works. So I kind of freaked out on this because I was like, this is amazing, right? Like you have, as an attacker, you have full control over that incoming request process, right? Full control. So I did a little bit of research, and there's a site out there, ipinfo.io, and I looked up like various companies that do this kind of stuff, like Palo Alto has Wildfire, things like that. So if you go out to ipinfo.io and you find these companies, they will tell you all of their Class C networks, right? So I went off the deep end on this, and this is me redirecting all of Proofpoint to Trump.com. All right? So I thought that was pretty cool. So, actually, I put the configs out there, in a gist out on GitHub, so if that's something you're interested in. Although, I do have to give a caveat. I just noticed this, a couple days ago. I got a shell, quote unquote, from Johnny's PC, which is Wildfire, and that was coming from the Tor network. And for whatever reason, I find it absolutely hilarious that defenders are now using Tor to anonymize their traffic. I don't know why. I think that's awesome. So anyways, but the Tor exit node IPs are known, so you can just drop those in your config, you can IP tables them off, or, do whatever you want to do. So anyways, again, if you control that process, that's how you can get shells. So let's talk a little about Gmail. I'm not quite prepared to discuss Gmail like I was about 4 hours ago, because I was getting ready to give this talk, and I'm going through the slides, and I had a test lined up where I take an Empire stager, right? And I just drop it in a macro. This is like stupid simple Empire default launcher, right? I drop it into a macro, and I attach it to my Gmail message, and virus gets detected. And this was happening a couple months ago when I was putting this talk together. And so this morning, I'm going through this, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just redo this test just to make sure that I'm being accurate in things that I'm saying. And I kid you not, I dropped the attachment into the message and sent it to myself, and Gmail was like, this is fine. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Look at, that's evil. Look at that. That's not supposed to work. That's like virus. And Google's like, no, it's not. It's okay. Jason, calm down. So anyways. So I sent it to myself. So now I'm pissed. So I'm actually going to just kind of go through what I have as though Google had blocked it. And well, that's good to know. I like failing open. I don't know why everyone wants to fail closed. Let's be honest with each other, right? So I took that spreadsheet and I sent it up to VirusTotal. All right, have a look at this. First of all, that spreadsheet, as simple as it was, only came back with 13 out of 60-something engines. Now, have a look at this. And this is how I know that even on the blue team, you all are hackers. You just don't know it. All right, look at that and tell me, what is the commonality that you're seeing there? What's commonality? PowerShell, of course, right? I mean, like I said, this is going to leave you underwhelmed. By the time I'm done, you're going to be like, come on, this is not supposed to work. So, would you believe me if I told you that if you did something like this, all that goes away? How about that? Huh? And that is accurate as of this morning. Okay? So what if Google's blocking you on the recipient side? So what if you're a pen tester and you're trying to pen test an organization that's using Google Apps or Google Suite? I was actually doing this, and I took my Everyone Hates HR fish, and I sent it to them, and I got no shells. And I'm like, all right, something's wrong, because I always get shells. And so I sent another fish, and I got nothing. And so I pull up my client, I called my client, I'm like, hey, is Google blocking me? It's okay, you can tell me. And he's like, yes. I said, okay. So I was like, that's fine, that's all I need. So I hung up the phone, and I went back to my team, and I'm like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And Casey pointed out, friend Casey, he said, oh, you just forgot this. All you have to do is add an SPF record to your domain. And I totally forgot about it. So when you register your malicious domain, you need to set up DNS properly, right? So I added the SPF record, and Google is doing SPF record checking. And the SPF record, if you're not familiar with it, basically just says these entities are allowed to send email on behalf of this domain. That's all it is. Very, very simple record. Okay, but the receiving side has to be configured to do SPF record checking in the first place. So even if you have, you know, an awesome Exchange implementation or using Office 365 or whatever, if you're not checking the SPF record, then I can just spoof domain and get my stuff to you. Okay, so if you set the SPF record, you can actually send and bypass Google spam filter that way. Pretty simple, straightforward. So let's wrap up email number 1. Obfuscate your payload. Obfuscate. Concatenate. Just split up PowerShell. Set your SPF and your DKIM records. That definitely makes your domain looking a little more legit. Use links instead of attachments. Like I said, attachments, even up to a year ago, attachments weren't getting busted like they're getting busted now. But ModRewrite is your friend. And then check your fish with isnotspam.com. Is not spam, is it? Yes? Great question. The question was, why don't I whitelist my customer's IP instead of blacklisting everything else? When the engagement starts, I don't know what their WAN IP is. What's that? Yeah, exactly. So, or they're on their iPhone, you know, at Starbucks or something like that. But it's a great question. Yeah, I don't know what their WAN link is. So, and then last but not least, don't trip threshold alerts. Proofpoint is particularly sensitive to this. So if you just, you know, pull up Kingfisher or Phishing Frenzy and load up 1,000 emails and hit go, it's going to just blast it, and Proofpoint's going to catch the first 10 and then shut you down. So pay attention to your thresholding. Maybe slow down. You just back off a little bit, and your emails will get through. All right. So let's talk about antivirus. Ooh. Everyone's like, not my EDR. Okay, so first things first, once again, let's understand the current state. Let's talk about, I tested a bunch of payloads against VirusTotal, and I focused mostly on Metasploit. This is something where we could go completely crazy in terms of testing. We could test all kinds of payloads, simply didn't have time to do a full and comprehensive breakdown of all the hacker toolkits, so I focused on Metasploit and several different variants of it. Okay, and once again, on the VirusTotal testing, focus mostly on major players, right? Symantec, McAfee, Trend, Windows Defender, and Silence, which are all in VirusTotal. So those are the ones that, generally speaking, I see the most of in my customers' environments, right? If you're running Kihu 360 or Clam AV, awesome, good for you. But that's not what I was focusing on, because generally nobody uses that. So here's how things broke out, and let's actually talk this through. So if we take a standard 32-bit binary, and this is like dumbest of the dumb, right? And send it to VirusTotal, we end up with 51 of 64. All right, so that's actually pretty good. It means you're getting busted. The major player column on the end means that one of those major players that I just discussed actually picked up the payload. Okay, so we want to see that, right? As you know, defenders, that's what we want. So just switching to 64-bit payload, nothing else. Just switching to that, we drop down 10, 41 to 64. Okay, if we change our template, that's when things get interesting. So embedded in the Metasploit template for generating executables is the word payload. If you change that to anything else and then regenerate executable, you drop down a lot. So 16 out of 62. And then we get into custom C#, and we'll be demoing this in just a little bit. Custom C#, that gets just random, you know, you spit out your shellcode, you stick it into your C# harness, and that gets you 6 of 64. By the way, chances are these have all changed very quickly because now VirusTotal has that, and chances are the numbers have modified. So just a little disclaimer there. And then if you go down, you start adding and coding. Notice those, where is it? Where's my, right here. So Microsoft, MS is Microsoft. Microsoft picked this up, identified this as an interpreter. Silence? Nah, it's fine. It's totally clean. Okay, Microsoft is the only one that picked this up. And then as we go down here, this is where the real money is. Okay, so I didn't know that Metasploit had an encoder called Zudu Dikiru. I had never even heard of that. So, but they do, and it's awesome because Microsoft thinks that's cool. So, we have that, and then, if you are familiar with Unicorn, Unicorn is only 1 of 56, and then, Ebola, which is the real magic, that is 0 of 64. So let's talk about AV evasions, all right, and how we actually work around stuff. And AV evasions and customization, like payload customization, we're going to run these two sections together, and then we'll do some demo. So as far as custom C#, we're going to be taking MSF Venom output in C# format and then just dropping that into our harness. Okay, we can easily. The nice thing about this is that we can easily modify this. If you are a red teamer and you don't do your own custom coding of implants or agents, it's probably time to start, because AV is picking up on a lot of this stuff. So, but they're not necessarily picking up on some of the custom implementations that you do. All right, so 6064 there. This technique right here, running PowerShell without PowerShell, I'm not going to harp on it too much. All they do is simply kind of need to show you about it. This is almost becoming mainstream to the point where I can take PowerShell code and fire it using system management automation.dll. Kits are starting to include this, like Cobalt Strike includes this by default. So I will demo this briefly, but only from a particular angle. So let's actually do that. Mirror displays. Okay. All right. So right here, this is the custom C# harness that I have, and this is out on my GitHub. I threw it out as a project, and I have links at the end. So, but this is there are many like this. This one is mine. So, in this case, I have a class called these bytes, and that class. Shoot, hold on. Let me make this bigger. That class is actually very straightforward. All you do is you take your MSF Venom output, okay, and you simply append the -f to C#. And it gives you this code. You simply drop it in. Very simple. If you have not used Visual Studio, you can do all this for free with Visual Studio Express. Build it, go to your project, go to bin, go to release, and there's your payload. Okay, very simple, very straightforward. On the PowerShell side, where's my start page and PS Fire? Cool. Okay, so all this is right here is the base 64 encoded representation of PS version table. Shoot, I apologize. You guys probably can't see that, but basically just know that it says 5.0. Okay, so I have PowerShell 5.0 installed in the system. That's great. We heard Matt Graber say in his keynote, get up to PowerShell 5.0 very quickly. I could not agree more with that. You get so many security measures, so much awesome logging in PowerShell 5 that you really just need to roll this out in your environment as soon as you can. Okay, however, if we take this code, and really, like I said, base 64 of PS version table, okay, all we're doing is we're decoding it. We are using system management automation.dll to open a run space. We are firing that, and then we're simply looking at the output. But here's something interesting I'm going to show you. So pay attention. Remember, 5.0 here. But if we run this, can you guys see that? Can you see it now? 2.0. Well, how does that happen? Well, the way that works is I'm using an old version of system management automation.dll, which you can still get. And so if you do that, and you include that in with your payload, you can basically do a PowerShell downgrade attack, and this does bypass all logging. Because I'm using the runtime version of 2.0, nothing gets logged in the event log. I confirm this. So I had someone ask me, if I uninstall PowerShell version 2, does that mitigate this? The answer is yes. If you remove PowerShell version 2 from your systems, then yes, this attack goes away. But something interesting occurs if I run this. When I did this in testing, if I run this code without version 2, you get prompted to install the .NET Framework version 2.0, which I thought was interesting. So the good news is that makes modifications to C Windows, so chances are a low-privileged user is not going to be able to do that. So get PowerShell version 2 off your systems as soon as you can. All right. Nope, still zoomed in. Okay, so how would I get that onto your system? Very, very simple. This is just a simple macro, and all that macro does is it calls a couple of functions, URL download a file, it grabs PS Fire and it grabs system management automation.dll, drops it onto your system, and then it simply calls shell to fire it. Now, what's interesting is that there's kind of a novel technique if you're a red teamer, is that a lot of people drop all their binaries to temp, or app data temp. You don't have to do that anymore. You can use program data, because even in Windows 10, program data allows low-privileged users to write and execute. I thought that was kind of fun. Oops. Where'd you go? Come here. Okay. All right, AV version 2. Back into PowerShell just a little bit. As you kind of saw, AV vendors really, once you just kind of look behind the curtain, they're just looking at strings. All right, we took PowerShell, we split Power and Shell, and we got rid of all the PowerShell stuff. Okay, so they're really just searching for strings. So a couple things to do. Number one, remove all comments. get rid of all comments in the script. All right, if you're a red teamer, and in fact, Ryan Cobb, I think, just landed the Empire pull request for obfuscating all the PowerShell framework in Empire. Is that true or not? Okay, cool. So that's awesome. That's amazing. As a red teamer, that's really, really cool. But if you're just running PowerShell scripts or you're running PowerSploit on a target, do yourself a favor, get rid of the comments first, because you're much less likely to get picked up. Change the function names and the parameter names, and concatenate your encoded commands, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So here is something that, this is actually something that I made. I use this all the time. This worked as of SEP 14 on my last engagement. So invoke Mimikatz gets picked up by just about everything now. However, this is really all you have to do in order to make invoke Mimikatz work against your EDR, is that you simply, the first sed line there is, we're just getting rid of the block comments, then we're getting rid of single line comments, and then we're changing dump certs and dump creds to gimme certs and gimme creds. And I'm getting rid of Mimikatz and replacing it with mini cars. And that's it. And that's how you call it. And like I said, this works against, last I checked, it worked against SEP 14. So, alright, and that's also out on my GitHub as well. And then, last AV version, version 3, is Ebola, which I'm a huge fan of, because of how it works. If you've never used Ebola in engagement, you really, really should. It encrypts the payload with a target environment variable, also called environmental keying, if I remember correctly. And then it self-decrypts upon execution. And what's awesome about that is that I can pick the environment variable that I want to encrypt the payload with. So for example, I can specify a user ID, I can specify a domain, I can specify a machine name, and then it will use those strings, in an attempt to do its own brute force decryption, once it actually lands on the target. And so, to chain this all together, kind of wrap this up, I think I have time. Oh man, I got all kinds of time. I'm going to slow way down. I got all kinds of time. So to wrap this up, I'm going to talk, the demo that we're going to do is payload generation. We're going to wrap it with some evasion, then we're going to put it into a delivery vehicle. So I'm using 3 tools for this. For payload generation, we're going to use Unicorn. Evasion, we're going to use Ebola. And then for the delivery vehicle, we're going to use Lucky Strike. So this is not recorded. I don't have any commands copied and pasted. So you all are going to see what a real pen test looks like, which is 90% of the keystrokes are backspace. So, first things first, I'm just going to run my launcher, or run my resource file to actually stand up a listener in Metasploit. And while that's working, I'm going to jump over here to Unicorn, and then in Unicorn, I'm simply going to, actually, let's get the IP address real quick. 130. Okay, so I'm going to run Unicorn, Windows, Interpreter, reverse GPS, paste that in, 443. Okay, so we're gonna generate that code. See if this actually works. I'm running a slightly modified version of Unicorn. I'm actually spitting out the raw PowerShell, and you'll see why. I'm gonna do that in a second. But just to look at the PowerShell, the current version of Unicorn actually does some of that string. It breaks up the encoded block into chunks, and that does AV evasion as well. Okay, but in this case, what I'm really interested in is this stuff right here. So this is the raw PowerShell that's coming out, and here's the shell code, and then the code that actually does the firing, the IX command down here. Okay, so there's a Unicorn. So I'm going to jump over into the tools. Yes. Okay. And then we're going to, Ebola uses a file called genetic config, which we'll talk through real quick. So the output type here is PowerShell. I want the output of Ebola to be a PowerShell script, and then I am passing in code. But the real magic is down here. So in this case, I have the username set to JSON. That is actually the decryption key that the payload is going to be encrypted with. And so on the target, here's my target. So, obviously, who am I? I mean, you can see, there's my name, Jason. So, but, you probably cannot see that, but I'll show you in a second. So, yep, you bet. The thing that I prefer to, key with is UserDomain. And the reason why I like that is because, the username is going to be the NetBIOS name of the Active Directory domain that particular machine is joined to, which means I can send that payload to anyone in that domain, and it's going to fire. So the nice thing about that, though, is that if it gets picked up by a wildfire or it gets picked up by another AV engine, it will not run in a sandbox because it's not coded to that domain. Okay. So we're going to and then raw PowerShell. Actually, that is the tool of the Unicorn. Raw PowerShell. and then we pass in the genetic config file. Okay, and so that spits out this file. So you guys can see in the back. That spits out this file down here. PowerShell symmetric raw encryption.ps1.ps1. So I'm going to copy that file to tools Derbycon. Nope, can't do that. No such directory. Yeah, there should be a directory there. Oh, that's why. Copy output PowerShell to tools Derbycon. That doesn't work either. What's that? No, not my. I have an additional directory there. Cool, that works. Okay. Derby. Let's just do this a different way. Tools. Output. What is it? Where's the file? PowerShell. Semantic encryption ps1.ps1. Here. The heck? Why are you not working? Is it jump? Thanks. Appreciate that. Ooh, well, PowerShell 1. PS1. Yeah, that's right. Isn't it? What's that? It's supposed to be capital T. Cool. Copy. Root. Tools. Ebola. Output. PowerShell 1, ps1.ps1. Here. Yeah! Boom! You're not supposed to clap yet, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good thing we have all kinds of time. There's so much more. Oh, I forgot my backup file. Okay, sweet. So we're gonna... You go to my desktop? Okay. All right. Just to make sure this is actually the right file. Keep this file in the editor. No. Let's actually open this. Desktop tools. Derbycon. I'm just gonna... Okay, cool. You all probably can't see that, but really, this is the code that the awesome Josh Pitts put together, and includes this cool function here called getterDone, and that takes the encrypted string and it takes the payload hash and actually runs through the brute force decryption. 10 minutes, awesome, thank you. All right, just for simplicity here, going off script. Okay. All right, can you guys see in the back? Sorry. I'll see what I can do. I heard I had 10 minutes. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Better? Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to, in Lucky Strike, I'm going to add that payload to the catalog. Okay, we're just going to call this Derbycon. And then choose payload types here. So in this case, I'm going to add a PowerShell script, and then that is going to be users, JSON, desktop. Okay, and that payload's added. All right. So now that we have the payload in the catalog, we can actually select that payload, which is what we're going to do because we want to add this payload. Oh, sorry, I should back up completely. Lucky Strike is a tool that takes your malicious payloads and drops them into a macro in either an Excel or a Word document. So we're going to choose an Excel document. We're going to select our payload. And then in Lucky Strike 2.0, I included an attack called Cell Embed Obfuscated. And what that does is that takes the PowerShell code and runs it through invoke obfuscation prior to actually dropping it into the spreadsheet. And so it takes that code, breaks it up, base64 encodes it, puts it into the cells, and then the macro code basically reconcatenates everything and fires it. So we're going to take that. All right, so now we have our payload added. And then we are going to create the file. Lucky Strike can generate files from templates, so if you have a particular XLS or .doc that you are fond of, I have one here called generate from template. I have one here called business time, so we're going to use that. Okay. So now I have my file, users JSON documents, Lucky Strike payload, infected template. So let's go over to payloads, and let's open up my template. on this particular one, if I send it to salespeople, 100%. Because sales bros just like, boom, click. Enable content. God, fingers crossed. 3, 2, 1, and there's our stage. Okay, so just to break this down real quick in terms of what this did. Thanks, man. Thank you. Cool guy in the back. You get a t-shirt, by the way. All right, so real quick. So instead of running it, I want you to see what this looks like. Sorry, I know you can't see it right now. I will make it bigger in just a second. So I'm just going to throw back a message box and run that. And that is the output result of invoke obfuscation. So that's actually what you would see in your PowerShell log. Okay? All right, so enough of that. This is probably the slide you all are going to be most interested in, as this is the tools that are used in this talk. And I don't know. All right, cameras. We'll give you all a second. I'll finish my eyes. I think that's about all I had. Thank you very much.